All right, greetings from Malaysia. Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to everyone joining us from all around the world. My name is Hanis Azmi. I'm the program officer at the Sunway Center for Planetary Health, and I'm honored to be your host for today's event. We are gathered here today for a very special occasion, the global virtual launch of the Sunway Charter, Faith in Action. The Faith Charter is an interfaith commitment toward restoring a future where faith and planetary health come together in compassion to address planetary health challenges through spiritual leadership and moral responsibility. Inspired by global declarations including Al Mizan, A Covenant for the Earth, Laudato Si, and the Sao Paulo Declaration, this charter seeks to unite spiritual wisdom with practical action for the health of people and the planet. The launch is a collaborative effort between the Sunway Center for Planetary Health, Sunway University, and the Planetary Health Alliance, Johns Hopkins University, and proudly sponsored by Muslim Aid. This launch also marks a key moment in the 10th anniversary of the Planetary Health Alliance, a decade since the landmark Rockefeller Foundation Landsat Commission report that established planetary health as a field, as well as the founding of the Planetary Health Alliance. Allow me now to walk you through the agenda of the day. We will begin with opening remarks by Professor Dr. Jamilah Mahmood, Executive Director at the Sunway Center for Planetary Health, Sunway University. Next, Dr. Iyad Abu Mobli, the Director of Faith for Earth Coalition, UN Environment Program, will deliver his keynote address entitled Faith, Justice, and Planetary Health, The Path Ahead. His address will set the stage for the unveiling of the Sunway Faith Charter, led by my colleague, Leila Iskandar. Following that, we'll move into the panel discussion entitled Faith Communities as Catalysts for Planetary Health Action, moderated by Lamiz Hafriz, Director of Strategy and Communications, Muslim Aid. We're honored to welcome a distinguished panel featuring Reverend Ebenezer Joseph, Venerable Napan, Professor Sam Myers, and Dr. Charanjit Kaur, who will share their perspectives and insights. After the panel, there will be a Q&A session. You're encouraged to submit the questions through the QR code for the Q&A, which will be made available throughout the discussion. Finally, we'll wrap up with closing remarks by Dr. Amjad Salim, adjunct fellow at the Sunway Center for Planetary Health, Sunway University. He will reflect on today's key messages, outline the next steps for endorsing the charter, and formally bring this meaningful event to a close. To begin our event today, it is my honor to invite Professor Dr. Jamilah Mahmood to deliver her opening remarks. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Hannes. A very good morning to everyone. Peace to all of you. And thank you very much for being here today to join us at this very auspicious event on the launch of the Faith in Action Planetary Health Charter. Just to go back a little bit on the history of this, with the Planetary Health Annual Meeting and Summit in 2024, hosted by Sunway University, Sunway Center for Planetary Health, we gathered a number of faith and spiritual leaders in Malaysia to discuss the importance of faith and spirituality in advancing the planetary health agenda. These people who participated, led by Professor Dr. Amjad Salim, had come together to draft this call to action. And indeed, this is what it is. In a world shaken by crisis, ecological collapse, social injustice, conflict, and misinformation and disinformation, many are searching for hope, for truth, and for meaning. And while science offers us knowledge and policy offers us frameworks, it is faith that offers us purpose. Today, as we open this important conversation on faith and planetary health, we affirm something both ancient and urgent, that the earth is sacred, that caring for creation is not optional. It is a moral duty shared by all faiths and indeed all human beings, I would say. From the Quran's reminder that humankind is but a steward upon the earth, to the Bible's call to tend and keep the garden, to the Buddhist precept of non-harming, to indigenous teachings that the earth is our mother, faith traditions have long recognized that our well-being is inseparable from the well-being of the planet. And yet today, that sacred bond is being broken. We are facing a planetary emergency not only of climate and biodiversity, but of the spirit, a crisis of disconnection and carelessness. In this time of overwhelming noise, where truth is twisted and trust is eroded, faith leaders and spiritual guides are among the most trusted voices in the world. They have the power to not only speak, but to move hearts, change behaviors, and shape culture. And yet, knowledge alone is not enough. We need wisdom, we need courage, we need moral clarity. And this is where faith communities can lead. More than 80% of the world's population is affiliated with a faith tradition. Imagine the potential for change if even a fraction of those communities embrace sustainable living as a spiritual obligation. So today, let this gathering be more than words. Let it be a call to action, to lead by example, to speak with unity, and to act with urgency. To our faith leaders today, here in this webinar and around the world, your wisdom is needed now more than ever. Your voice can cut through confusion, nurture trust, and ignite change. Let us stand together in humility, in solidarity, and most importantly, in hope. Let us plant seeds of transformation, not just in policies, but in the hearts of believers and non-believers around the world. So this is the first step. And I think this is such an important step when science and spirituality will walk hand in hand, when data meets devotion, and when the sacred and the sustainable align, and we can truly heal our planet and ourselves. So thank you very much, and may this webinar inspire not only reflection, but renewed purpose for us all.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Jamila Mahmood, for your compelling opening remarks and for framing today's conversation so meaningfully. Next, we're honored to welcome Dr. Iyad Abu Mogli, Director of the Faith for Earth Coalition at the UN Environment Programme. Dr. Abu Mogli will deliver the keynote address titled Faith, Justice, and Planetary Health, The Path Ahead, offering us a global perspective on the intersection of faith and planetary health. Over to you, Dr. Iyad.
Thank you very much, Shanice, for the introduction, and thank you, Dr. Jamila, for the wonderful opening. Esteemed colleagues, respected leaders, distinguished scholars, and friends, it is both an honor and a sacred responsibility to join you today for the launch of the Sunway Charter, a living commitment to a healthier, more just, and ecologically resilient future. We are gathered here at a moment of profound convergence, where sacred values meet science, where compassion meets policy, and where human dignity must walk hand in hand with ecological integrity. The triple planetary crises of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution is not merely a scientific emergency. It is a crisis of systems, values, and governance. Most importantly, it is a crisis of justice. Those who have contributed least to global emissions, including indigenous communities, women, youth, and low income populations, are the first to suffer and the least equipped to recover. This is not only unfair, it is morally indefensible. Justice, in the worldview of most religious traditions, is more than fairness, it is a sacred duty. In Christianity, for example, justice is often equated with love in action, protecting the poor, upholding the dignity of creation, and aligning human law with divine will. In Islam, adil, justice, is one of the names of God and a central pillar of a faithful life. The Quran commands believers to uphold justice even if it is against yourselves or your kin. In Buddhism, Buddhists teach compassion and right action as justice, emphasizing the interdependence of all living beings. Hinduism connects justice to dharma, righteous duty, and to ahimsa, the non harm. In all these traditions, justice is deeply relational between people, between generations, and between humanity and the natural world. So, how do we define planetary health in this context? From UNEP's perspective, planetary health relates to the health of the Earth's natural systems, its climate, ecosystems, air, water, and soils, and their ability to sustain human well being. But from a spiritual perspective, planetary health is also about the well being of the soul of the Earth. It is the harmony between the seen and the unseen, the material and the sacred. It is about restoring the web of life that connects all beings. Planetary health is not just the absence of environmental degradation, it is the presence of systems, economic, social, cultural, and spiritual, that nourish the flourishing of all life. This is precisely the framing offered by Al Mizan, a covenant for the earth, which is a groundbreaking Islamic ecological ethics document developed by leading scholars with the support of UNEP. Al Mizan draws upon Quranic values of Tawheed, the oneness, that all creation is interconnected and flows from a single source. Al Mizan, which is the balance, the universe was created in balance, and injustice occurs when we disturb that balance. Amana, which is the trust, humans are trustees of the earth, not owners of it. Al Mizan defines environmental degradation as a form of injustice towards others, towards future generations, and toward the earth itself. It affirms that protecting the planet is a spiritual responsibility and that sustainability cannot be separated from ethics, equity, and human dignity. This vision has already begun to inspire change. For example, in Jordan, Al Mizan is informing national environmental policy and has led to the establishment of an Al Mizan National Park rooted in Islamic ecosystem thinking. In Zanzibar, it has guided new dialogue around ecotourism. In Pakistan and Malaysia, national strategies are being developed based on Al Mizan's principles. A forthcoming Al Mizan Covenant for the People this time will focus on activating society wide engagement around justice, resilience, and sustainable behavior. These ideas are not theoretical. Across the globe, faith based organizations are putting planetary health and justice into action. For example, Christian Aid is developing a climate repatriation and just transition into the global south. Green Anglicans and Eco Jesuit are training youth in eco discipline and community reforestation. In India, interfaith leaders are mobilizing for sustainable water management, aligned with spiritual symbolism of rivers in Hinduism and in Islam. In Zambia, women led church groups are creating seed banks to build food security as an act of care for future generations. The Sunway Charter emerges in the same spirit. It recognizes that planetary health is not just the absence of environmental degradation, but the presence of systems that nourish the well being of all life. It calls on institutions, including faith actors, to be drivers of transformation through education, advocacy, sustainable practices, and the reweaving of values that have too long been ignored in mainstream discourse. This is where faith traditions have a vital and implaceable role. As the United Nations Environment Programme's Faith for Earth Coalition, we have witnessed how values rooted in sacred teachings, stewardship, compassion, justice, humility, are becoming catalytic forces in global climate action. In the Faith for Earth Coalition, we have been working closely with faith leaders, women, youth, indigenous wisdom keepers, and scientists to create conditions of conscience, ones that are not only multi faith, but intergenerational, gender just, and grounded in community realities. This mirrors the ethos of Sunway Charter. It speaks of radical collaboration, and it reminds us that the care for the earth is to be is to care for one another. I see the charter as a document that not only charts a bold and urgent path for planetary health, but also recognizes the centrality of faith, justice, and moral courage in guiding that journey. At the heart of this charter lies a recognition that the environmental crisis is not merely scientific or political, it is deeply ethical. It asks, what kind of world are we leaving to our children? What kind of relationships are we cultivating with the earth, with one another, and with the divine? This charter is a moral declaration, a collective intention, and most importantly, an invitation to act. It aligns with the deepening recognition of the UN and within global policy spaces that we must integrate ethical and spiritual dimensions into our approach to planetary health. So, what does the path ahead look like? The Sunway Charter must not only inspire words, as Dr. Jamila mentioned, it must catalyze institutional transformation. I would like to offer three specific pathways. First, embed faith voices in environmental governance. Faith actors must be given seats at the table in local, national, and global environmental decision making processes, including the UN Environment Assembly and COP negotiations. Their legitimacy is rooted in moral authority and local trust. Second, we need to mainstream ecological ethics in education and advocacy. The Charter can help establish partnerships with universities, seminaries, and spiritual networks to integrate planetary health into theological curricula, leadership training, and public discourse. And third, mobilize faith based resources and infrastructure. Faith institutions collectively manage vast land, buildings, and investment portfolios. By greening their operations, switching to renewable energy, divesting from harmful industries, promoting sustainable lifestyles, they can set an example for the world. Faith actors are often the first responders to suffering, the moral compass in time of confusion, and the bridge builders in divided communities. Yet today, the call is louder and the stakes are higher. The launch of the Sunway Charter is a timely and urgent commitment to a healthier, more just, and ecologically resilient future. This charter speaks to the heart of what many of us in the faith, environmental, and academic communities have long known, that the crises we face are not only environmental, they are moral, spiritual, and profoundly unjust. Dear friends, the future of planetary health will be determined not just by policies or technologies, but by the values we uphold, the systems we transform, and the hope we choose to sustain. The path ahead will not be easy, but as people of faith, we know that hope is not passive, it is a discipline. It is the act of planting seeds even when the future feels uncertain. It is the courage to believe that transformation is not only possible, but already unfolding in the quiet work of farmers, monks, nuns, scientists, youth leaders, and all those who dare to act with love and integrity. Let the Sunway Charter serve as a living covenant between people, planet, and purpose. Let it be a moral compass in all ages of distraction and division, and let our shared action bear witness to the truth that justice is not a burden, It is the path to healing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Iyad, for that impactful and meaningful keynote address. This perfectly sets the tone for the landmark moment, the unveiling of the Sunway Faith Charter. This important segment will be led by Leila Iskandar, Communications Manager at the Sunway Center for Planetary Health, who will introduce the charter and share its powerful vision for faith-driven action in planetary health. Over to you, Leila.
Thank you very much, Hanis. Hi, everyone. Layla here from Sunway Center for Planetary Health. And I would just like to give a heads up and say thanks to everyone who had shared their video messages and show your support and endorsement for the Sunway Faith Charter, because your contributions have actually brought this launch to life and in such a meaningful and beautiful way. So without further ado, let's take a look at the video and celebrate the voices that have come together for the launch of this important charter.
Welcome to the global virtual launch of the Sunway Charter Faith in Action. The Sunway Faith Charter is an interfaith commitment to address planetary health challenges through spiritual leadership and moral responsibility. This charter affirms our commitment to the principles of sustainability, justice, and compassion, inspired by global declarations such as Al-Mizan, a Covenant for the Earth, Laudato Si, and Sao Paulo Declaration. This charter seeks to unite spiritual wisdom with practical action for the health of the people and the planet, guiding us towards a world where respect for the earth is central to our efforts. We invite a collective journey to endorse the charter towards a future where faith and planetary health come together in compassion and shared purpose.
The Faith in Action Charter is so important because we need to reach the people who are out there who may not understand the importance of the linkages between the health of the planet and the health of human civilization. Faith leaders play a very important role as trusted members of the community.
Faith and spirituality remain a lived experience of people, and so it's our duty to tap into those traditions to help to protect all life and encourage meaningful action rooted in our shared values of sustainability, justice, and care within a spiritual tradition. Join me in endorsing and taking the next steps.
The Planetary Health Alliance is deeply grateful to have the Sunway Charter Faith in Action out in the world, and we are delighted to host it on our website and make it available to the global community.
As stewards of our planet, we protect both the natural world and ourselves. This is why Muslim Aid is proud to sponsor the launch of the Faith in Action Charter for Planetary Health.
Planet Earth, our only home. Let us live together in peace.
May the Sunway Charter is a faith in action, shining with spiritual renewal, community collaboration, and lifestyle for planetary health. Thank you.
The Book of Revelation speaks of the wood. The Book of Nature speaks of the plants, rivers, and trees. When we listen to both, we begin to see. Caring for the earth is a sacred act of faith, one that grounds us in our beautiful diversity to work together in planetary health.
There's no better way to express our faith by taking care of God's creation, and that is what planetary health is all about. Let's support the charter.
With that, the Sunway Charter Faith in Action is officially launched. We invite you to endorse the Sunway Faith Charter as a commitment of shared responsibility and solidarity in shaping a better future grounded in ethics, faith, and action. You are welcome to scan the QR code on the left to download the full Sunway Charter Faith in Action and the QR code on the right to endorse the charter and be a part of the movement. Thank you.
Yes, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to announce that we have virtually and successfully launched Faith Charter. Thank you. Over to you, Hanis.
Thank you, Leila, for the enlightening introduction to the Sunway Faith Charter and for officially launching the charter. We will now move on to our panel discussion titled Faith Communities as Catalysts for Planetary Health Action. This session will be expertly moderated by Lamis Hafriz, Lamis Hafriz, Director of Strategy and Communications at Muslim Aid. We are honored to be joined by a distinguished panel consisting of Reverend Ebenezer Joseph, Venerable Napan Tawan Barjob, Professor Sam Myers, and Dr. Charanjit Kaur. Together, they will share their unique experiences and perspectives on how faith communities can drive meaningful change for planetary health. Over to you, Lamis.
Thank you very much, Hanis, for that. Hello, assalamu alaikum, salam, peace. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever time zone you might be in. I'm Lamis Hafiz. I'm the Director of Strategy and Communications at Muslim Aid UK, as Hanis mentioned. We're an international NGO which is operational in over 17 countries worldwide in emergency response, health, housing, livelihoods, and education. You may wonder why Muslim Aid is hosting and sponsoring the Planetary Health launch. As Muslims, of course, we believe that Islam is a way of life, and we're very clear that every aspect of our life is interconnected, and therefore our approach to the environment and sustainability should be a holistic one, which is completely embodied by the Planetary Health approach and by the Faith in Action Charter. As I said in the video, we believe that being stewards of our planet, we protect the natural world and ourselves. And this is integral to Muslim Aid's strategic direction and our values. And it's why we're so honored and excited to sponsor the launch. We can't tackle the issues that impact the lives of our rights holders and the communities we serve without dealing with root cause issues, the climate emergency, and caring for our planet. Sustainability is a key principle in our upcoming 5-year strategy alongside inclusion and wholeness, all of which we find represented within this charter. As such, we are pleased to be integrating the planetary health approach into our work and endorsing the charter. As Hanis has mentioned, we are pleased and privileged to be joined by our 4 panelists for this discussion, at the end of which you will have a chance to also ask questions as the audience. Unfortunately, the Q&A function on this Zoom webinar is not currently working. So the wonderful Hanis and Leila have found a solution for us, and I am going to try and share on my screen a QR code that you can use to ask questions. It should send you to a Menti screen, which is an online option to ask questions. I'm going to try and do that now, hopefully with success. If you give me 1 second. Sharing now. I'm hoping that that is working. So I'll keep that on my screen and hopefully you'll be able to take a picture and get to the Menti screen whilst we're at it. At the same time, whilst I keep that on my screen, I will go to our panelists. Dr. Ebenezer Joseph, who is being already introduced by the wonderful Hanis, is the former president of the Methodist Church of Sri Lanka, is currently the Secretary General of the Interfaith Coalition of Peace. He currently serves as a member of the Central Committee of the World Council of Churches and is a council member of UEM. He's actively involved in many peace and reconciliation initiatives, fostering inter-ethnic and interfaith relationships in Sri Lanka, and was awarded the World Methodist Peace Award in 2022. We also have with us the Venerable Napan Santibado Thaworn Banjob. I'm sorry if I completely said that incorrectly. He's the Assistant Abbot of Wat Saket, the Golden Mount Temple, Chair of the Institute of Buddhist Management for Happiness and Peace Foundation, and the Secretary General of Religions of Peace. He's a Buddhist monk serving as who has also platformed Buddhism or spotlighted Buddhism and pushed for the SDGs, has leveraged faith-based values to advance the SDGs, fostering peace and development within the community at national, regional, and global levels. He has extensive experience in interreligious dialogue and peace building and has represented at significant events such as COP16 and COP29, and is affiliated with so many international organizations and so many amazing initiatives that there are far too many to list at this moment in time. We also have with us Professor Sam Myers, the Faculty Director for the Planetary Health Alliance at Johns Hopkins Institute for Planetary Health. His research focuses on planetary health and therefore the impacts of global environmental change on human health. He is the inaugural recipient of the Aral Global Food Innovation Award in 2018 and the Prince Albert II of Monaco Prize for research at the interface of health and environment in 2015. He is the co-editor with Howard Frumpkin of Planetary Health, Protecting Nature to Protect Ourselves, which was voted one of the 25 best books of all time by the American Journal of Health Promotion in 2021. Lastly, but not least, we are joined by Dr. Chiranjit Kaur, who is associate professor at the University Tunku Abdul Rahman. She is the associate professor at the Faculty of Creative Industries, renowned for her expertise in cultural anthropology, particularly in the context of Malaysia's Sikh minority. Her research delves into intriguing topics such as religious cultural conflicts, gender identity, and social behavior, with insightful findings published in esteemed book chapters and journals. Her valuable insights are highly valued by Malaysian agencies, NGOs, universities, and esteemed religious bodies, and she is regularly invited to share her knowledge at various academic community forums. So these are the wonderful panelists we have joining us, and I will start by going to the Reverend Ebenezer and posing the question, Reverend, why is the Charter vital for you, and where do you see the value that this brings?
Well, I hope you can hear me. Basically, I believe when you look at the process that gave birth to the Charter and also the contents of the Charter, I think we need to first recognize that the planetary health is not only a crisis of justice, governance, economy, lifestyle, and so on, but it's also a crisis of faith. And that's why for me, it's quite interesting that the faith dimension and the response of the faith communities is brought into in trying to address the issues of the planetary health. And secondly, I think what has been also expressed in many of the speeches we heard today is the hope. I mean, I'm just beginning with a very simple example in Sri Lanka today. We are an island surrounded with an ocean, and due to very unpredictable weather patterns, today what we experience is that there is no salt in the island that we have to import. I mean, you see the magnitude of the crisis. It now has come into every kitchen in Sri Lanka because of the weather patterns, the climate, chaotic climate that we experience. And therefore, today I think hope is not just seen as a virtue, but also, as I read in the newspaper yesterday, there was a person who said hope is also dangerous because hope pushes you for action. And for me, that's the blend that this charter brings when you say faith in action. And also, very briefly, I must say that this journey has enabled us to rediscover our faith basis. Now, I'm just giving again an example from the Christian perspective. We have dogmas, we have traditions, we have theologies, but suddenly we realize that the God that whom we speak of, he primarily reveals himself as the creator God, a God who first creates and then only creates human beings. So our whole faith basis is on the creation on the planet, without which we can't even comprehend who our God is according to our faith. So there is a rediscovery of our own faith basis in this journey. And I think that has been captured in different ways in this charter. The power of faith is not just accepting that the present forms of faith is perfect, but to recognize that the faith is also in crisis and to rediscover the basis of our own faith. Secondly, I also find that this charter talks about the lifestyle, and I think that's very crucial. We may have a lot of theologies, a lot of seminars, analysis, articles, and so on. But when you talk about the lifestyle, it's touching the basis of our morality. How do we live? What determines our action? And I am really happy that the lifestyle has been given such a prominence in this charter, because then it calls for questions about our consumerist behavior, our the limitless artificial needs we create. It's not about only the political, economical level in the global level, but the lifestyle that affects every home, every minute of our life, the food we eat, and so on. So I think this gives a basis to bring together people from diverse backgrounds, unifying us, searching for a lifestyle that is mutually benefit for everything. And then, of course, it bridges a huge gap in interfaith relationships when it is talking about participatory relationships. I think religions have interacted over the centuries in many ways, and we have ample documents about interfaith dialogue taking place in different ways. But relationship is vital, and that relationship to emerge through participation, which I believe needs a lot of spiritual sustenance. It also refines our spiritual heritage. So the faith practices become a bridge linking the faith communities to come together. And it's also the charter, I believe, gives way for simple expressions for the lay, the ordinary faithful, when you're talking about what we need to do in places of worship. Places of worship is not only dominated by clergy like us, but it's filled with the ordinary people, with the ordinary sentiments, the ordinary language. And I think that gives a huge possibility, not only to address the issues of the planetary health, but also bridge the interfaith, the gaps and the tensions, so that through participating relationship, we really speak about a totality of the health that we seek for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Ebenezer. If I can next come to Professor Sam Myers, the same question.
Yes, thank you so much. And what a huge honor it is to be here with all of you. And congratulations on the launch of the charter. It's so important and so exciting for our entire community around the world. So I'm very, very excited to be here. Humbled by the eloquence of Dr. Jamila and Dr. Iyad at the opening. I doubt that I can say anything that they haven't said much more eloquently. But I think the few points that I would make about why the charter is so important to me and to us in the planetary health community, it starts with a recognition that so much of what most faith communities concern themselves with from a sort of humanitarian standpoint and the well-being of humanity is fundamentally at stake. So I came to this as a physician and a scientist, not as a faith leader. And the journey I've taken is to recognize that if you care about global human health and well-being, you start to understand that those things are inextricably connected to the state of our natural systems, and that we're destabilizing those systems at the fastest rates in the history of our species, and that things like peace, food security, prosperity, human health depend on stable systems, and that we can't maintain those things as we degrade those systems. And so it's a fairly practical understanding that so much of what we care about in these communities around the world is at stake. But there's a deeper understanding that's come to me more slowly, which is that underneath the Earth crisis that we are worried about and the global health and humanitarian crisis that's being precipitated by the Earth crisis, there is indeed what Jamila just described as a crisis of the spirit, a sacred bond being broken, that we're facing a spiritual crisis. And I think we have to ask ourselves when it became acceptable to treat our oceans and our atmosphere as gigantic garbage bins, when we became comfortable wiping entire species off the face of the earth without even mourning them. In short, when did the reverence and awe that you are all pointing to, that's in just about all of the faith traditions, as well as most indigenous knowledges around the world, when did the reverence and awe that so much of us feel toward the natural world lose its authority to guide our collective actions? Why do we act collectively in a way that so many of us feel is essentially sacrilegious? And that gets to the third point that I would make, which is that I think our faith traditions and faith leaders are some of our most trusted messengers, as Dr. Jamila emphasized, and that if we want to reinvest our decision-making with the reverence and awe that so much of us feel toward creation, the natural world, however we frame it, that we're going to need our faith leaders, indigenous leaders, members of the arts and humanities to take the lead in that reinvestment, in crafting new stories, in mapping our understanding of our dependence on natural systems onto these traditions and re-energizing that understanding. And so I actually see this launch and this conversation as one of the absolutely most critical conversations in the whole field of planetary health, because it brings our hearts and our spirits into the conversation in a way that is really critical. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Professor Sam. Now to Venerable Napan Santibado. I think Professor Sam brought up a really good point around where did the reverence and the awe go, and how this charter sits very well in addressing that. Maybe you can weave that into some of your responses as well.
Thank you very much, Salamis, and I'm honored to be here, and thank you for such a wonderful event and very energetic. And to answer your question, I think the charter itself, to be honest, I think without the charter, the Sunway charter, I'm not here. So, and I think this is the same. Without the planet, we cannot be here, right? So for me, in Buddhism, we have the Buddha teaching like interconnectedness or dependent origination. Because of this happen, this happen. Because of this gone, this gone. So I think the Sunway Charter for me is just like IBH Foundation motto. Institute of Buddhist Management for Happiness and Peace Foundation motto, which is peace in one heart, start in one hands, our hands. But the charter kind of bring more hands, more hearts, and more heads to work together on the planetary health, which is right now, I'm going to show you the real example because I need more hand from my director of Youth Empowered Partnership Center to help me with the presentation. So please, Pauline, could you please share the screen? Just briefly, I just want to share that because of the charter, thank you for the leadership of Jamila and also the Dr. Amjad and everyone who work hands in hand. Please, Pauline, go through it very quickly. But one of the most important teaching for the Buddha, Kamuna Vatati logo, which Professor Dr. Iyad also mentioned about Kamma, right? So Kamuna Vatati logo is mean this world is driven by Kamma. So next, please. So Pauline, can you go through with this? Because I learned from the charter and the process that we wrote the charter together, the process is very important. And it brings value in terms of not just only principle, but also the what do you call the call to action. And then because of the charter, because of the planetary health, because of the farm, so we estimate 5 5 center to work on this, and the mental and planetary health center is one of them. So from this gonna be a lot of pictures. So for example, we saw Sunway University work on planetary health, so we invite academia to join, and they also work on the low carbon society. So we work collaboratively, effectively, and then you can see we integrate mental health, and to do that, I can say we feeding two birds with one cracker, not kill two birds because I'm peace builder and I'm a Buddhist monk, no killing. So we help with the blind people to give the massage, to take care of the physical and mental health. And at the same time, they work on stress management. So please, next please. And this is also the spiritual renewal that I got from the charter, because in Buddhism we have the idea of circular economy. Like my robe, the Buddha allowed us to pick up the abandoned cloth to put it together. It is upcycling from 2,500 years ago, but now we brought that ancient wisdom into the modern world, work with the business organization called Malu, and show the world that we can use something like this upcycling based on Buddhist culture, and then reduce carbon footprint. You can read that, and you can also scan that as well. And this is the example that we brought the idea from the Buddhist culture to share with the COP 16 and COP 29, for example. Next, please. And also through the media, new medias and national media. So you can see that receiving cloth, and also with the national level and local level, we work with the BKK, Bangkok Metropolitan, that the governor on the zero waste campaign. Next, please. And try to engage more children, more young generation to cultivate this kind of the habit. So next, please. And not just only children, but the senior monks, we also ask them to sign MOU. So Dr. Amjad, I took your approach to force my Abba to sign MOU. And next, like you endorsing right now. And also this is we work with the community level. So think about that, the way that Sunway University and the Sunway Charter brought different people from different community and work on the same goal. That kind of encourages us to bring more community and our spiritual leader to work on this. Next, please. So a lot of, and then this is the most important one, because in Buddhism, we have the candlelight triple circumambulation. It's like a 3 round procession with the light. But because of light and incense can cause more PM 2.5, then we use the tree instead. After you holding these three round, walking to pay respect to the Buddha, that 3 round, and then all Buddhists can bring that to plant in their own home. And you have a look at the long queue from where the event arranged to in front. It's like around maybe 500 meters. So it's got attention from the public, and our celebrity and media kind of participated in that. So, and this is also solar cell that kind of inspired, because we work on this, and then business organization saw this, and then they donate solar cell and help us decrease electricity, and also inspire the temple to use solar cell on the roof. But this is the roof of the IBH Foundation. Behind that is a Golden Mount Temple. So next, please. So it's also, we work on biodiversity loss, because planetary health, biodiversity loss is very important issue, but people normally don't see it. So we work with the 30 by 30 Thailand Coalition and try to bring this into, for example, it's in the Deep South. This is about mental health, human rights for Hula monks. And we try to cultivate this kind of thing for them to help people, because religious leader kind of the moral leader for the community. So when we ask them to be someone who do this, it's going to cause more positive impact. And also with ICRC. And next, please. And next, please. And you can see this is when that happened in from 2024, and because of the chapter, everything happened after that. So I think I don't want to waste everyone time that much, but just want to share that one thing lead to another, and this is what charter brought me here. And this is to the COP29, and you see Pauline, actually she's very young and she's from the scientific side. She's a doctor in pharmaceutical side, but because of this, now she standing up and also help with the communication thing, with the what they call the spirit of the Buddhism, but in the modern way. And I think that's all for now, because I'm not sure, Pauline, everything finished? Because after I share this, maybe Lami don't allow me to do anything. So at the end, Pauline,
I will definitely give you more of a chance, don't worry.
thank you. So if we can live in peace with nature, we may only rest in peace. That's the final thing for me. The value that the charter brought it to me. It's just like not just only principle from different faith, but also how we're going to put it into our action, and not just only action. We should make it collaboration. So this is the best beginning ever. So hopefully think about the charter, the Sunway charter can bring me far away like this. How we're gonna go together very far for the planet. And because of it, I think we can do a lot of things together. Go together, we can go further. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. And actually, Venerable Napan pointed to what was going to be my next question to the panelists in the next round, which is how do we take action really, and what do you see as next steps? And clearly you've already been taking lots of action and bringing communities to the next steps. So last but by no means least on this question, Dr. Charanjit, why is the charter vital for you and your communities, and where do you see the value that it brings? And maybe more so also pointing out, given your expertise, the charter points very much to sort of cultural and lifestyle changes. It's a big cultural change tuned to it, and how can we do that major culture shift in order to address these issues?
All right. Thank you, Lamis. I think the culture part I will cover in the second part later. All right. It is a privilege to be included on this panel with three outstanding individuals who are making real impact in the area of planetary health. I may not have the same depth of expertise in this field, but I hope my experience in education and interfaith work can add a small but hopefully a meaningful perspective. As a Sikh and as an educator, the Sunway Charter, Faith in Action, resonates deeply with my both spiritual values and professional responsibility. Sikhism teaches the principle of Sarabda Phala, which means the well-being of all, honoring all forms of life and the environment. Just to share, there are about 30 million Sikhs worldwide who follow only one scripture called Guru Granth Sahib. Allow me to share one verse on page 8, which stated, Pawan Guru Pani Pita Mata Dharth Mahat, which translates as air is Guru, water the father, and earth the great mother. This sets the tone. Nature isn't just resources, it's sacred, as mentioned by Professor Jamila in the opening speech. Hence, we are reminded to treat her with respect and care. Guru Granth Sahib emphasized the interconnectedness of all creation, affirming that the divine is present in every being and element of nature. We humans should use nature responsibly, not to exploit it. For example, on page 4, describes the balance in creation. Kudrat the Kudrat Nature is seen, nature is heard. It is a reminder to stay connected and not to disrupt the balance. The Charter's foundation in stewardship, justice, and community-led action strongly reflect this teaching. It emphasizes on inclusion, intergenerational equity, and indigenous wisdom, aligned closely with the Sikh values such as equality for all, selfless service, and respect for diverse worldwide. As an educator, I mostly value the Charter's focus on faith-based education and advocacy. It promotes the use of knowledge, ethical reflection, and value-driven action to empower communities, especially the youth, to act with purpose and ethical awareness. This charter is significant because it offers a moral and spiritual framework that complements the scientific urgency of climate action. It calls us not only to think critically, but to act with compassion, courage, and cooperation. It affirms the vital role of spiritual leadership in driving systemic change, not just in policy, but in the deeper paradigms that shape how we live and relate to the planet. And I shall discuss this in the next question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charanjit. You might as well flow into the next question or the second half of the question that I asked. Please
Okay.
go ahead. Go
All
ahead.
right. Okay. The second question is asking us what we are thinking, what we can do, what we can suggest, right? So firstly, as an educator in ethics, civilization, and anti-corruption, I actively integrate ecological ethics and planetary responsibility into my teaching. I emphasize that ethical living involves not only integrity in governance and society, but also accountability to the environment. In class, I use relatable examples to help students understand the link between anti-corruption and environmental responsibility. For example, I describe a scenario where a valuable rainforest, crucial for cleaning the air, supporting wildlife, sustaining local communities, is legally lost because someone bribed officials to ignore the law. This illustrates how corruption directly harms the environment, biodiversity, and people's livelihood. Through discussion and role play, students learn the importance of honesty, transparency, and protecting nature resources as a key aspect of their ethical and civic duty. I stress that when leaders lack of integrity, both nature and communities suffer. Fighting corruption is crucial to protect our planet. It is it is more than just laws. It's about doing what is right for everyone and the earth. Secondly, I believe there is a meaningful space to cultivate interfaith collaboration around shared ethical and ecological values. Through my involvement with NGOs such as Global Unity Network and Interfaith Spiritual Fellowship, known as INSAF, I have seen how we can foster dialogue and collective effort that promote both ethical living and mutual understanding. These platforms can serve as a meaningful space for shared learning, thoughtful reflection, and impactful action. Moving forward, we could explore initiatives such as interfaith green campaigns, community gardens, cleanup drives, and so on. By encouraging diverse faith communities to work collectively on ecological and ethical goals, we can strengthen interreligious harmony while promoting a more just and sustainable society rooted in shared values. If I may add one thing, I really hope to focus on the future is amplifying grassroots voices, especially those of youth, women, and marginalized communities who are often excluded from the mainstream environmental conversation. I plan to create spaces where their story can be shared meaningfully, making environmental dialogue more inclusive and grounded in the life reality. I think these perspectives are very vital in shaping fair, practical, and sustainable solutions for planetary well-being. I believe storytelling can serve as a powerful tool to humanize climate challenges, foster empathy, and inspire collective responsibility for Earth and all who inhabit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charan. And back to you, Reverend Ebenezer. What do you see as some of the next steps that you're considering regarding this charter and putting the charter into action? And what do you suggest that people do? We have, an audience of, I think, about 50 plus here, but others that are going to be engaging with the charter as well.
Well, that's a very challenging question, I believe, but I think primarily I will say that the charter needs to be localized, and I think that idea has been reflected in many of the speakers. Localized in the sense that you integrate the vulnerable communities as active partners in this process. It includes women, youth, but I'd also include the disabled and the ex-combatants and the other marginalized communities in our own society. But in order to localize it effectively, I think primarily you have to translate this charter into the local, you have to translate it into the language that the local people will understand. But I'm not just talking about language translation, but whether under each heading, whether we can bring concrete examples from Sri Lanka, from the communities, so that it makes a little more sense and attraction or make people to compel to respond, while keeping also in mind that in our country where we have a majority of Buddhists and Hindus, also to keep in mind the fact that we are addressing local people who have a different worldview. And sometimes I think just language translations alone does not. So I think that's a huge challenge, but that has to be done if it is to be taken to the ordinary people. And then, of course, I'm quite this thing about the places of worship becoming the centers where this issue is addressed. I'm not talking about the cathedrals and the huge temples in cities and all that, but you go into the 80% of the Sri Lankan rural population, simple places where simple people gather. And I think you then, I believe there is a greater bondage of the ordinary people's spirituality, which is also quite different from what the kind of spirituality that I will explain as a priest. A simple spirituality that sustains everyone. And I think there it's much more easier to have collaboration, to bring understanding, to respond to this issue. And of course, the chart also talks about harnessing local knowledge and traditions. And I think in our own situation, there is so much of practices and traditions that we still do it in a very ritualistic way, but do not capture the real meaning and the power that it has about integrating people and also integrating people to the earth, the climate, the planet, and so on. So in that sense, I believe this will give a good basis to bridge a gap between the sacred and the secular, which I think also needs to be understood, between faith and science. And I already see some good remarks made today. And also between the link between environmental health or the planetary health and peace building, which is crucial for Sri Lanka. So I would like to see the linkages also being made at a local level. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure Dr. Amjad will be making some comments on those linkages with peace building as well when he speaks after us. But before we move on to the question answer, if I first come to Venerable Nathanis, I am giving you more space, you see, to maybe speak also on how you see taking the charter further and what advice you might have to our audience in doing so as well. I know some of the themes you mentioned around youth and otherwise have already been picked up. Please.
Thank you very much, Lamis. I say that because I know that I spent a bit longer time than the rest honorable speaker, so that I don't. I just wanted to be fast. So keep it short. I think what I can share is just like it's kind of butterfly effect. So what the Sunway Charter did to me is kind of make me think in quite new way in different approaches. That's something that if we can learn from the chapter, if we can work together on something, and for example, even Dr. Fatima from Sunway University come to visit us, and this kind of the collaboration, even informal, but it means something. So this is what we should do, and I think not just only endorsement for the charter, how we're gonna gather information, gather our action, and then put on the same platform that everyone can learn. Everyone can inspire each other to work together for planetary health. And it begins today, right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And lastly, before we go to Q&As, Professor Sam, would there be any areas that you would want to highlight or suggest in terms of next steps? I know that we were discussing yesterday that the charter is going to be translated into the UN languages first and then hopefully other localized languages. But are there any other sort of discussions or suggestions that you would want to add to this?
I mean, I thank you. I think I would say just a couple of things quickly. I think the first is to emphasize something that Dr. Charanjit said about accountability. And I do think we need to examine the rupture between our words and our actions. You know, many of the texts that we have been citing have been around for hundreds or thousands of years. We have a tradition talking about stewardship, about creation care, about the moral imperative of, you know, thinking in 7 generations from indigenous traditions. We know that what we're doing to our Earth system is deeply unfair, that the burdens are disproportionately borne by, you know, most vulnerable communities and future generations. We know these things, and yet there's a rupture between what we know and how we act. And so I think we need to look at that head on. It's not just a question of, oh, here's a new idea, but also how do we actually connect? And essentially, how do we hold people more accountable from a moral perspective? So I think that is something that we don't want to gloss over. And then I would totally agree that there's an effort to sort of build the structure underneath this charter to, as Dr. Ebenezer said, to localize it, to translate it not only in language, but also in environment. And then finally, to work with opportunities to build community globally around these topics. So whether it's with the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues and their big statement of indigenous determinants of health, that the health of the land and the people are synonymous, and that sort of whole conceptual framework, or with other global meetings of faith traditions to find ways to start to really socialize the ideas that we're all talking about and bring them out, as well as to build a body of teachings and sort of culturally appropriate materials to allow faith leaders in local settings to draw on those materials. And it's certainly something we at the Planetary Health Alliance would be very happy to support in terms of hosting those materials and helping to get them out. So a really exciting conversation, but there are a lot of steps to make it really effective in the world from here.
Thank you so much. So we have about 8 minutes for questions and answers, and thank you to everybody who has been submitting questions. We do have quite a few on here, so I won't share screen again because we do only have 8 minutes. I think it would be interesting maybe to come to Dr. Charan and ask this a specific question, but others feel free as well if you would like to answer. It says, how does the Faith Charter address the needs of diverse faith communities, especially in multiracial country like Malaysia? And I think we've talked about the interfaith aspect and how this can bring that together. But Dr. Charan, I'll come to you first.
Sorry, what is the question again?
It's asking, how does the Faith Charter address the needs of diverse faith communities, especially in a multiracial country like Malaysia?
Okay, in Malaysia, normally interfaith initiative is very positive. That there's a platform for us to always share the shared values. So this is how we work together. All right. So you will have a certain thematic or the certain conference or this, and we work on that basis. So based on my experience, most NGOs or even government agency, they are very at the minimum level. They only prefer to have a dialogue, discuss different faith. But in the action, like what Prof. Sam was asking, that it's nice to say, but what is in the action? It's a bit limited. All right. So through faith initiative, they are actually, but not so overwhelming as compared to dialogue itself.
Thank you for that. And then there is a question that is linked to that, that maybe one of the other panelists would like to address to Venerable Napan or Reverend Ebenezer. It says, one of the principles mentioned in the Charter is inclusivity. How would you approach the topic of spirituality and environmentalism for atheists or those who have felt excluded from faith communities? And there's another question that alludes to that as well, of if you are not practicing a particular faith. And I think, Reverend Ebenezer, you mentioned spirituality um, uh, from a different perspective. And so maybe I can come to you.
I think the spirituality that I'm sort of trying to articulate is something that gives space that will be more inclusive, and not only in terms of people who articulate spirituality in terms of faith, but even people who have no faith, inverted commas. I mean, so that is why even earlier I said that we need to be very mindful when we translate, look at the worldviews. It's not only religious worldviews, there are secular worldviews, and therefore we need to have to broaden the space that does not exclude anyone. I mean, I'm just giving a very short answer, but I hope you get the direction in me.
Namis, can I add on?
Yes, of course.
Because I always have this in my class, right? So basically, I'm the person who never use religion as the framework, all right? Because student at this age and my background, my student background is actually, most of them are non-Muslim, right? Some don't really think religion is important. And I hate when people have a perception that, oh, you have no scripture, you have no God, that means you are another believer. So to minimize their perception, wrong stereotyping on, I rather focus on values. All right. Who say that the atheist group do not have values? Sometimes when you talk to them, they are actually much more better in understanding the nature, they are scientific knowledge, and it's very interesting to have them. So basically, like in my class, when I do this about ecological things on, we base on the values, shared values. So if there's an interest of discussing about faith, then we bring faith in. Even if I don't mention faith, it doesn't matter because all the values is actually translated or can be seen in the scriptures. So if you want to get the youth to be attracted to your ideas, your initiative, I think sometimes based on their condition, context, it's not necessarily to use religion first. So that's why we say it's a shared value. So that's how they become more flexible, relaxed, and they are able to share their views. So that's what I do in class.
Thank you for that. I think that's really important. You know, we talk at Muslim Aid as well. Obviously, we're a Muslim charity, but we have core values which include compassion and justice and service and dignity. But these are universal values and they're shared by people of faith and of no faith. And I think that's really important that these we're talking about putting our values in action. And Professor Sam talked about that disconnect between what we speak about and what we do. And I think that's an important part of this concept, and that's why we're speaking about lifestyle change as well. That was brought up earlier. I
Even
think Venerable Napan, if you wanted to add anything to that, and then I have another question that you might want to speak to as well.
Okay, so may I share briefly on this from myself? Even IB Health Foundation, we driving Buddhism for SDGs, but the way we have been doing it, it related to inclusivity. I think every one of us, no matter who we are in terms of religion and races, we need to take care of our health, right? The same, we need to take care of planetary health. Even we have, different religious background or anything, but anyway, we need to help each other to take care. So what we have been doing right now is just like we use the planetary health as a common ground for everyone, believer or non-believer, to work together. So Buddhism have something, Christianity, Islam, Hindu, Sikh, Confucian, all of that, Taoism as well. So have something related to nature and the way that we can take care of our Mother Earth. Just only allow the space that everyone can bring that spiritual belief, religious belief into action together, collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think in your presentation you also mentioned some work that you do with sort of government and maybe ministries as well. How does the charter, do you feel, help contribute to government's work?
I think it's about the community collaboration. I think because we know that the specific departments of the government, they work on a particular issue. So we try to identify that what issues and what department that we can work together. So for me, it's just like make their own work become their own responsibility, but related to what we want to invite them to work on, and that make it become like lifestyle. And because of that, the way that we work on this, they got their performance, they got evaluated in a very positive way, and also they can, what they call, create like relationship with their public and with the people. And because of that, I think it's kind of the brought into another level of the everything that we can do related to the charter. I'm not sure that I can answer your question or not, but I think it need to do it strategically and also the systematically, because just only individual level we cannot do that much. But in institutional level, and especially if you can do on the policymaker level, like right now we work with the Ministry of Social Development and the Human Security, and also the department that work for the climate change, and also the member of parliament as well. Tomorrow, I'm going back to work with some of the Senate as well. So this is something that if we can use it, like the spirit of the charter, to invite people to engage more, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Um, and the last question before I pass over for closing remarks, there's two actually that I think speak to similar issues. It's a question about how do we move beyond advocacy to practical collective action. But linked to that is, how do we push for these concepts of environmental stewardship when we're witnessing sort of this crumbling rule of law in a global geopolitical situation as we see it? Professor Sam, I might come to you to close. It's a big question to bring to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's part of why this charter is so important, that we do need to move beyond advocacy to collective action, and what actually brings people to act as opposed to talk is usually that their hearts and spirits are engaged in that action. If you look at the history of movements and movement building, certainly in the United States where I'm from, things like the civil rights movement, faith leaders were absolutely critical, and a sense of the moral dimensions of the issue were absolutely critical to mobilizing people into collective action. And I think that we can't shy away from the need for radical societal transformation if we're going to have a livable future for ourselves or the rest of life on Earth. And we need faith leaders and other spiritual leaders around the world to come together to call for that kind of movement building and collective action from their positions. It's why their role as trusted messengers is so important. I think there are others who can play that role. There's organizing around clinical practitioners and around mothers and other people that we give moral authority to in our society, first responders. But I think faith leaders have a very, very critical central role to play in this.
Thank you so much. And with that, we're just over time, so I apologize to Dr. Amjad, who will be doing the closing. But before I hand back to Hanis, I just want to thank all of our panelists, thank all of you for the questions that you posed as well. Thank you, Reverend Ebenezer, Venerable Napan, Professor Sam, and Dr. Charanjit. I very much enjoyed that. I hope you all did as well. And congratulations to all of us on the launch of this charter. May we be able to engage with it and bring it to success within our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Lamise, for your excellent moderation, and a heartfelt appreciation to all of our panelists as well for sharing such insightful insights and experiences and addressing the questions posed by those tuning in with thought-provoking perspectives. Finally, we'll conclude today's event with closing remarks from Dr. Amjad Salim, Adjunct Fellow at the Sunway Center for Planetary Health. Dr. Amjad Salim will share key reflections and guide us through the next important steps in endorsing and activating the Faith Charter. Over to you, Amjad.
Thank you very much, Anis. Distinguished guests, esteemed religious leaders, friends from across the faiths and traditions, fellow caretakers of our shared home. Thank you for joining us today on this very special but also very inspiring afternoon here for me in Geneva. I don't know for the evening for people in Malaysia and morning for you, Sam, I think. So thank you for that really inspiring session. Coming at the end of such an inspiring session is almost difficult to kind of sum up what has been said. Only to kind of say I agree with everything that has been said. But today marks, the beginning, or it's a culmination of a journey that started over a year ago when we were challenged actually by Dr. Jamila to create a space for a conversation, an honest conversation around faith and planetary health, and on the sidelines of FAM 24, to come up with some ideas of what can be done and to look at what are the next steps. And so out of that space that Venerable Napan talked about, there was this idea that we should come up with some sort of call to action, a charter. And so like all good things that takes time to germinate, the idea has simmered and it's matured, finding the right time to bloom. And so today, it's not just about a simple launch of a charter. It is actually marking the end of one part of the journey and the beginning of another part of a collective journey, one that weaves together the moral imagination of our faiths, the intergenerational legacy of responsibility, the ancestral wisdom of our communities, and the urgent call of science to protect this one precious earth. And we see this as an intersectional conversation across generations, intersecting with communities, from elders who carry sacred memory to youth who carry radical hope. We are bound by this shared purpose, rooted in our spiritual commitments to a common humanity and a shared dignity, to restore the wholeness in our ecosystems, in our relationships, and within ourselves. So today's launch of the Sunway Charter on Planetary Faith and Planetary Health it's not just an academic exercise or a symbolic gesture, but it should be seen as a living commitment to heal what has been broken. Because as we've heard, planetary health is not just about the carbon emissions or the rising sea levels. It's about understanding that intrinsic nature of the interconnectedness that we all have and the balance that we all must maintain. We've talked about the need for looking at this with dignity, about justice, about the reconnection. Our spiritual traditions have always known this. Our forefathers have tried to teach us this, to teach us that the earth is sacred, that the balance is not a metaphor, but a command to safeguard that deliberate equilibrium and to uphold all of living things' inherent dignity. As Professor Sam said, there's a disconnect between what we're hearing and what we're seeing. There's a disconnect between the audio and the video. And so we are once again reminded that our spirituality comes from how we treat the rivers, the forests, the animals, our fellow human beings, the most vulnerable. And so the hope is that the charter gives a shape for this starting premise. We're reminded of the shared values that we all hold of stewardship, of responsibility, of unity, of the need to integrate inherited knowledge, of justice, of intergenerational dialogue. We are called to make the case, to advocate for climate justice and environmental equity, to educate and empower our communities, especially the young people, embody sustainable lifestyles that align with our values, to collaborate across our various traditions, and to cultivate a spiritual renewal. That's what the Charter is asking us to do. But this moment is not the end. And as I said, it's the start of the long journey, because all the hard work starts now to put that into practice, to move beyond the advocacy. But it is an invitation to each of us, not just as professionals or representatives of different faiths, but as human beings and of conscience, to ask, what more can I do? What more can we do? So I invite you today, here and now, to endorse the Charter. Hanis will share the link to how you can endorse it, to take it to your places of worship, your classrooms, your parliaments, your families, to translate these principles into programs, sermons, rituals, policies, gardens. Healing the earth is not just a policy question. It's a spiritual discipline, a moral imperative, and an act of love. And let us remember that it's not just the complexity of the actions, but the depth of our conviction that will determine our success. In the words of Wangari Maathai, the Kenyan environmentalist, it's the little things citizens do that will make the difference. My little thing is planting trees. So let us commit to our own little thing. Sign the Charter, spread the Charter, bring it to life. We start with one action, join the global dialogue. We at the Sunway Center will be looking at ways of sort of helping with education and advocacy. We're thinking about a toolkit for religious leaders and sermons. And we want to make this not just another event, but the start of something sacred and unstoppable. I want to thank Dr. Jamila for her faith and perseverance in this, for really pushing us through this. I want to thank the team from the Sunway Center for the work that has been gone on over the last year, but also for today. I want to thank Mary and the team from the Planetary Health Alliance for their support and for hosting the charter on the website. I want to thank Muslim Aid, Lamise in particular, for chairing this, but also for their endorsement of this and wanting to move this forward. And to thank all the people on the panel today, the initial signatories for the charter and the people who came together to put this into action. Thank you so much for this. Hanis, I hand it back to you.
Thank you, Amjad, for your closing remarks. You brought the closing perfectly for today's virtual launch of the Sunway Charter Faith in Action. Thank you, everyone, for joining in from across different time zones. We appreciate your presence today. The last thing on the agenda before we end is we would like to take a photograph of all the speakers and panelists. So it would be great if everybody could turn their cameras on and smile. Okay. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Another one. 1, 2, 3. All right, perfect. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in today. And I hope you have a great day or night ahead, wherever you are in the world. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.